Hey everyone, so now Trump is in office. I had to wait a bit for him to have his second executive order. Basically, he did one executive order. He didn't mention crypto or all the stuff that everyone was waiting for. Then I had to wait for the second executive order that maybe he will talk about Bitcoin Reserve or maybe about crypto or anything. He only touched upon Doge, which is Department of Government Efficiency, and not the Dogecoin. So I'm going to basically rip apart everything that he has discussed so far, and I'm going to share my perspective on it as what to expect in 2025. Of course, I have already covered 2025 in that 2025 video where I have mentioned how I'm expecting financial crisis in 2025. It's a long video. It's 33 minutes video, I think. Go and watch that. It's there. But we're going to talk about what Trump has discussed and how it's going to have an impact overall. So we're going to take it piece by piece. I'm going to talk about the Elon Musk's office of Doge, as how it's going to have its impact. Is it going to be positive? Is it going to be negative? And we're going to try to stitch this whole thing into the economy as well as its impact on stocks and crypto. So now we are going to talk about tariffs and taxation. Now, tariffs and taxation, this is something that it can lead to a trade war with the rest of the world. In simple language, if you are introducing tariffs and taxations on external imports that are, they are external, that's why it's called imports. If you are imposing it on imports, then what happens is that from one end, yes, you're trying to support your local production. But from the other end, you need to understand that there are so many things that are coming from outside for a particular reason that you cannot produce it locally, because locally your labor charges are so high because you have inflated economy that you cannot match the prices. And as a result, what will happen is that the consumer are going to have goods at higher prices, which is going to disrupt the economy more than it is. Right now, you are sitting at an inflation of 2.9%. The CPI data showed that. Overall, rate cuts have no impact on the economy. Nothing has changed so far. I have already mentioned this in my 33 minutes video. Last year, we had the biggest sell-off from the stock market from insiders, institutions, and people running organizations like Warren Buffett selling 130 billion or something. Anyway, so tariffs and taxation is going to be a red flag. It is going to have a negative impact on the economy and not a positive one. And it can lead to trade wars as well, because it's going to upset your external partners. And of course, people like China and others, they can make their own decisions. World is dramatically changing, and now not one single supplier or a single customer is in the position of monopolizing anything. You need to understand, there was a time when our relatives, I'm from Afghanistan, our relatives would come from Europe and they would bring us toothpastes and other soaps and stuff, and we would look at it and we would be happy. Why? Because we didn't have access to those kind of things. Those were the days, and those relatives, they mattered. Now we have access to everything pretty much. Every product that you see in Europe, you see it in Afghanistan as well. So if you see it in Afghanistan, you can understand you are going to pretty much see everything in India and China and all those countries. You are not going to be in that power position as you were 20 or 30 years ago. Those dynamics have changed now. People in Bombay, they have the same amount of power, or now the appropriate word is Mumbai. They have the same amount of power in terms of buying. Of course, not the general public. You can bring in the slums in it, but you do understand, if you bring in slums, then I will bring in homeless people in the New York as well. But generally, I'm trying to say is that if you take the population size in China and India, and if you remove the millionaires from it and the billionaires from it, they have more millionaires and billionaires that you have in USA. So this power game is not going to play out well, and you are picking a fight with Asia. It's the biggest continent in the world. More than 50% population of the world lives there. They have the largest number of countries. The biggest country of the world is there. Everything that you think of, whether it is ancient history, the biggest conqueror of the world, anything you pick, you will find that in Asia. So I think picking a fight with Asia is one of the worst things that you can do in current era. Ask Snapchat when they said that Snapchat is not for poor people like India, and then millions of uninstallations started happening with everything that was called Snap. Anyway, that's too much of a discussion over a single point. Now let's talk about the government efficiency, the Department of Government Efficiency. Whenever we talk about efficiency, we are basically talking about improving the process and reducing the labor. Now, reducing labor is going to backfire because you're trying to cut off people in government. Most of the employees in the job market generally comes from government entities. Of course, they play a big role in private sector as well, but government is generally where you have more stability in the job, because people, when they have government jobs, they don't like to switch. They are there until they die. They are basically planning on their retirement, and that kind of attitude still exists in government entities. In private sector, of course, all that stuff has changed. So if you're going to introduce efficiency, you're going to remove people. If you're going to remove people, that means that you are going to make some people angry, and not just that, this is going to have a negative impact because you already have people who are unemployed. And Elon Musk has a very bad habit. I don't know, he calls himself Alan or Elon, however it is. Elon Musk has a history of getting rid of people. When he acquired Twitter, he removed 80% of the employees, and then he went out on TV and he was bragging about it, that you don't need 80% of the people. Apparently 20% is enough. Now, from private sector's perspective, this is a good move, but from the public's perspective, or if you talk about the government entities perspective, this is going to be disastrous. I have worked for the government for 3 years. I have worked for the United Nations for 9 years. I have worked very close with the presidents of the world, with ministers, deputy ministers, advisors to the president. I've worked with a lot of, they're called crocodiles and sharks. I understand the government environment extremely well, and I understand that when you go there and you're poking holes in it, I understand that you're trying to introduce efficiency, but governments are there for the sake of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy and efficiency cannot go hand in hand, and this thing is going to be a bit disastrous. But I don't blame Elon. That guy has never worked inside a government, and it comes from an experience only. Sadly, if you have worked on all the sides of the table, if you have worked for not-for-profit, for-profit sector, intergovernment agencies like UN and government, and you have seen all the sides, then you have a bit larger perspective on how everyone operates. But if you are someone who is only working in private sector, you're more or less like a spoiled child. You have no idea how the world operates. You are only concerned about one aspect of the things, and you don't understand why the rest of the stuff exists. So I think this Department of Government Agency, government efficiency, is going to backfire because it's going to do more harm than good. Yes, in public size, it's going to be a hero moment where you introduce efficiencies. But if you're going to go after people's jobs and making them redundant, it's going to be horrible. Look at Ford. Ford has gone bankrupt how many times? Whenever they need money or whenever they wake up every morning, they say we are bankrupt, and they have 400,000 employees or something like that. Then the government always goes there and saves them. Why? Because they are feeding 400,000 people, and you don't want all of a sudden 400,000 people getting jobless. Same as the case scenario in government jobs. Government's job is to create jobs and not to reduce jobs. So this is it's a two-edged sword. Yes, efficiency is good, but what you're trying to do is going to do more harm than introducing efficiency. One last example, like when I was working with the United Nations, there was a time when we talked about spot checks. So we had different regions where we had to take flights and check their cash balances. I think we were giving them like $5,000 each, cash in hand, just for the sake of it. So we had to go to, like, I don't know, 15 or 25 places to do the spot check. Then I sat and I did the calculation. I told my CFO, I was COO, I was reporting to the CFO. I told him that the the cost to do the spot check is more than the money that they have or the money that they can steal. I said, even if everyone is stealing the money, it's still not worth it to go and check because it's not cost effective. So when you bring it to the cost effectiveness, this efficiency is going to kill, because from one end, yes, you're going to improve the processes. There will be less bureaucracy, things will be simplified, they will be more efficient. From the other end, the cost effectiveness in terms of the economy of the country is going to backfire. You're right now dealing with recession. You have not accepted it, but at the same time, if you're going to make more people redundant, this thing is going to come back and bite in the ass. Anyway, now we are talking about the cryptocurrency friendly executive order. Now, this is something that we are talking about reappealing SAB 121, where banks are unable to hold crypto and they're basically trying to boost the overall crypto economy. This is good and bad at the same time. This can lead to the situation of 2008, where banks were fueling into the real estate. It can be the same thing. You're just replacing real estate with crypto, a more volatile and cancerous space. I am crypto 24/7, but I cannot lie about the fact that one day Trump can launch his coin at $15 billion market cap. Next day it is sitting at $100 million market cap. That can be totally achieved. I mean, the Melania, whatever his wife's name is, that coin has gone down 78% in 24 hours. You need to understand that this is an extremely, extremely volatile market. If you allow banks, the general public is stupid. General public has no idea. What do? They swipe through TikTok, they swipe through videos on YouTube. If they have some influencer that they're following, they have some nice music and backgrounds and they're doing this in the videos, they will go for that thing and they will buy. And all of these pumps and dumps are going to screw everyone up with ease, because right now when they see that Trump is launching his coin or his wife is launching a coin, there is still a little bit of hurdle. Why? Because not everyone has access to Moonshots app. Their credit card will not work with it. Not everyone understands how to use Radium or how to use Solana bots. All that process is cumbersome. It is a bit challenging. So there are some walls that negate some of the audiences who are completely clueless to jump into something that they don't understand. Of course, they don't even follow the basic idea. Don't invest into something that you don't understand. That's the first rule of investing. So when you remove that thing, what happens is that as a result, people who are going to have direct approval button from the banks, they're going to enable everything to be purchasable with ease. They're going to exhaust their credit cards, their line of credits. They're going to take out second mortgages on their home. The stupidity doesn't end. It goes to an extreme, and Western economies are all about how to make the general public bankrupt, because they give you loans that you should never have. I mean, if you go to the other side of the world, like I'm talking about my country, in Afghanistan, you cannot own something that you cannot afford. No one is going to give you a loan unless you need loan for marriage or some. People will come together, give you the money, but the government is never going to introduce a system where you can screw yourself up. Why? Because the debt-based economy is what messes everything up, because you cannot fix its inflation. The home prices that continue to grow up, the price of one bread or an apple that continuously goes up, even though they bring down the inflation from 5% or 8% to 2%, like they are saying in 2008 the inflation was 8% and now it's 2.9. It's nothing. It is everything. This 2.9% is way bigger than what we were seeing at that 8%. You need to do a comparative analysis to understand that that 8% didn't have this kind of impact that this 2.9 is having. Why? Because it is an inflated economy. It's called debt economy, right? So considering that, if you are going to let people buy everything, considering how these economies operate, it's going to screw everything up, and I don't think it is a good move. So this executive order, if it passes through and it enables everyone to jump into the market, yes, good. Temporarily, it's going to be good for the crypto space. A lot of liquidity would get injected into it because people will get themselves bankrupt. But just like what we saw in 2008, it is going to be artistic, because there will be a lot of what is it called, acid debt. It's going to be a debt on paper, but no one will be able to pay it because everyone who has taken loan from the government, they all will go bankrupt. So you would have $800 billion on paper that people owe you, but everyone will declare themselves bankrupt. Then what will the government do? They will print $1 trillion to settle everything off. AIG will die, some banks will collapse, some will survive, and all that same loads of crap. Next, they have introduced their own World Liberty Financial. This is something I'll not touch on. And yeah, the renaming of Gulf of Mexico. I understand that Trump likes to pick fights, but I think making people angry for things like Panama Canal or anything else, especially when they are your neighbors, I don't think it's a good move. You're already upsetting people with trade war, and then you're going to go after the neighbors that are supposedly working in your country and are major source of labor, cheaper labor. Then I'm not discriminating anyone. I'm just talking about stuff in statistical manner. Please don't get into those directions and come into my comments and start saying stupid stuff. I'm just stating factual data. Take the data and you will be able to conclude. Anyway, so if you're going to target them, it's going to backfire again. I don't think that's a good move. Anyway, now we have discussed all of these things. Institutional shift, debt pressure, we have talked about recession, we have pretty much touched on everything. Now we have already discussed that there are going to be 2 rate cuts this year. We have already seen that nothing is happening as a result of those rate cuts. That means that these 2 upcoming rate cuts are not going to have any good impact either. Now let's talk about XRP, its lawsuit, and the SEC control, how they're going to have a control on it, and we will talk about the Bitcoin reserve, the strategic Bitcoin reserve that Trump has talked about. I'll try to finish this video under 30 minutes. Apologies for making it long. I could have made 3 videos, but then I decided to go all out. Those who will listen, they will listen. Those who wouldn't listen, they wouldn't listen. Anyway, now talking about the SEC, you need to understand that SEC chairman changing process is not going to help you to make things in your own favor. SEC is an independent body for a reason. So if your president goes bananas, he doesn't have all the rights, and there is someone independent controlling the president or anyone else in the political power. Same is the case scenario with the judges. If you are controlling the judges, you are making all the decisions for them in the court of law, then what's the point of having a judge when every time a judge makes a decision and then Uncle Sam comes around and he says, no, it should be like this, it should not be like that. If you are the judge, then why the hell that judge exists? You will be making. So this whole thing is a structure not a single person can make. And those who don't know, SEC makes decisions by commissioners vote. It's called conjugal voting or something like that. There's a term for it. Just a second. It's called anyway. Yeah, it's a called it's a collegial body. That's the word. Basically, the chairman is not the sole decision maker. It's about the commissioners. Of course, the president decides the chairman and the commissioners, but you need to understand that you cannot influence everyone, and not everyone is going to be your brother and sister and cousins. They are going to be people who are going to be independent, and once they are recruited by the president for 5 years, the president cannot touch them unless they do something extremely sexual or fraudulent. If they're not doing anything extreme, then even the president cannot remove them, which means that there would be some people who would be nice in the eyes of the president, but later on they will show their true colors. So when it goes to voting, he is not going to have 100% control over SEC, And it's not just about appointing the chairman. Chairman is as powerless as the president is when it comes to SEC and making their decisions. So SEC card is not going to play. It's good for public speeches and stuff. No one is going to dig into it, how the hell SEC operates. So it's good to gain votes, create hype. People can get excited about things for no reason. So this is good for the excitement purposes. It's better than a Viagra. But the on-ground reality is that it's not going to have any other impact. Other than that, if we are going to talk about the XRP's case scenario, again, it's a judge that is going to make a decision. Uncle Sam cannot come in and dictate to the judge that XRP is not a security. This should be your verdict, and you should conclude. It's not going to work like that. Judges have their own right to make a decision, and again, it's SEC, one independent body talking to another independent body, which is a court of law. A president intervening in it, stepping in, and then deciding it for both of them is going to look extremely awkward. And this whole democracy that we boast about, we as in public, not me, then that's going to come to is going to become a very questionable thing. That what's the point of having a structure and infrastructure and processes in place when one person can sabotage everything? It's not a dictatorship, right? Yet. Anyway, so that being said, the last thing is going to be the Bitcoin reserve. Now, the Bitcoin strategic reserve, there are two ways around it. One is that you introduce it from scratch. Let's talk about the easy way out first. Those who are getting irritated by the longer video, the easy way is to go and partner up with an existing body. In America, a famous one would be Coinbase. The president basically goes for an executive order, and then they sign up something with Coinbase. That way you can avoid Congress, SEC, and pretty much everyone, because you are going after an established body. That body is already established. They have gone through that process, so they are not going to evaluate them again. And you're not going to ask for more budget. Assuming that you're going to rely on the existing budget, you're going to use that budget and you're going to buy Bitcoin with it. This thing will work out in 3 to 4 weeks. That's the fastest route. You pick someone and you get into a marriage with them through an executive order. Now, if you're not going to partner up, you're not going to get into this marriage with an existing, and you're going to go and create something of your own, then there is no shortcut. I will tell you how many processes it's going to require. So first of all, he needs to go through the executive order to make it fast track. So once you do that, it's going to take a few days. Then you're going to coordinate with Treasury and Federal Reserve, and this is going to take from few weeks to few months, because the Treasury Department oversees the national reserves, and then of course the federal is the decision maker in everything. So this is going to take few weeks to few months. Then we are going to go towards congressional involvement, and you're going to go after votes. Now this thing can again take several months to years. If you sit on their throats and don't let them breathe, then this thing can be done in few months. But if you're going to not suppress them, then it's going to take multiple years. You're going to go to their votes unless you go and partner up with Coinbase. So if you're not going to partner up with an existing person, you are going to get stuck on the Congress voting. And the moment it goes to Congress, this is going to be the only bottleneck that you're going to deal with. And like I said, the fastest route is several months, and the actual one takes multiple years, because they're going to discuss everything. And then we talk about infrastructure and custody. Of course, this can again take few weeks to months. You're going to talk about how this overall custody will work. How is the infrastructure going to look like? You're going to design the SOPs for its standard operating procedure. You're going to design everything around it that a person can think. Why? Because you're creating this thing from scratch. And the last not the least, regulatory approval. Again, agencies like SEC and CFTC, they will come into play, and they're going to take their sweet time of few months as well. So if I combine everything, if you're not going to partner up with Coinbase, something like Coinbase, it's going to take at least 2 to 3 years to establish this Bitcoin reserve. Again, for votes, it was really fancy. People thought that the moment Donald Trump gets into his Oval Office, instead of drinking his first cup of tea, oh no, you guys drink coffees, first coffee, he's going to create this Bitcoin reserve thing. It's not going to be that case scenario. The fastest track is going to take few weeks, and I said this is few weeks if he makes it a burning issue, which in my mind, I think even if it's not a burning issue, it's not a national threat, it can easily take 3 months with Coinbase as well. That being said, this is something that will get into debates. People are going to come and argue about it as well. This will be discussed over the news, and it's going to lead to further issues. But I'm negating everything, and I'm just keeping it in isolation. Everyone in America agrees to it. Still, it's going to take 3 months with Coinbase. If it's not Coinbase, then 3 years. This is good. 3 numbers. We can come up with it this way. We will easily remember it. Now we are sitting, what day is today? 20th of January. Today's 20th of January. By the time he wakes up and he decides to do it, if he picks Coinbase, if he has good advisors, then they will tell him to go down the route of Coinbase. If the advisors are sleeping a little bit, they're a bit sleepy, then they might tell him to let's do it on our own, and then that is going to take a good amount of time. So depending on what they advise, which path he picks, you're basically talking about 3 months to 3 years after he decides, which means that Bitcoin is not going to go up dramatically towards that $300,000 that you had in your mind, and it's not going to happen. And again, I think the question that should come from Treasury or anyone in power would be that why the hell we are buying Bitcoin at $100,000 price? It makes no sense whatsoever, considering that they already have over 1 million Bitcoin. You can read about that in my book. But jokes aside, I think it makes no sense to create strategic Bitcoin reserve. What the hell are we achieving with it? I have no idea. You can leave comments if you have any ingenious ideas about it, as why are we buying Bitcoin at $100,000 and we are not buying it at $50,000? It is going to eventually go towards 50, 32. All those prices, they might not seem realistic, but go back in 2021, Plan B or Michael Saylor, they were delusional as well, and Bitcoin went from 69 to 14. So everything can happen. Bitcoin has history of going down, and if you're going to argue about ETF, I'll make a separate video on how ETFs work. That will pretty much kill that delusion as well. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I have covered it under 30 minutes. So now you know what to do and what to expect. And this year, 2025, still doesn't look good. And I'm still waiting for that magic wand that Trump is hiding, that he will bring out and will solve the overall economic problems, and we will not see a recession.